This training is only required for LCPA staff that handles oil, where the other one is an airport-wide, including all staff and tenants. This is specific to LCPA staff who handles oil. So,
all right, with that, my name is Gary Nychek. I'm an ecologist for Johnson Engineering here in Fort Myers. And today we're going to be going over the 2016 annual training for the spill prevention, control, and countermeasures. The agenda for this presentation is to hit the applicable pollution control laws and regulations, and then to dig into the SPCC plan that has been developed and implemented by LCPA. The SPCC regulations have a similar origin to the SWIP regulations. Both were born from the Clean Water Act enacted in 1972. However, the SPCC regulations are specifically geared toward oil. In 1973, the Oil Pollution Prevention Act was issued under Section 311J and Section 501 of the Clean Water Act. And the actual federal regulations now reside in 40 CFR 112. Another difference between the SWIP and the SPCC regulations is that the EPA retains enforcement responsibilities of the SPCC regulations. The Oil Pollution Prevention Act establishes the requirements for the prevention of, the preparedness for, and the response to oil discharges. It requires the development and implementation of an SPCC plan, and it details the procedures, methods, and equipment requirements necessary to move that plan forward. So how does the SPCC rule apply? There are two requirements that must be met for the SPCC rules to become applicable. One is that the owner or operator of a facility has to be engaged in storing, transferring, distributing, using, or consuming oil. The second is that the facility could reasonably be expected to discharge oil in quantities that may be harmful into navigable waters of the United States. So as with many laws, the true meaning lies in the definition of the terms used. And right here you can see I've emphasized oil, discharge, harmful, and navigable waters. And I'd like to jump into those terms a little bit more detail before we move on. Oil refers to oil of any type and in any form. It includes petroleum, fuel oil, sludge, oil mixed with wastes, fats, oils, greases of animal origin, vegetable oils, and even synthetic oils and mineral oils. A discharge is any spilling, leaking, pumping, pouring, emitting, emptying, or dumping of oil that is not in compliance with a permit. Harmful quantities, these violate Florida water quality standards. That in itself doesn't help us much. So if we read down, we see that harmful quantities cause a film or sheen upon or discoloration of the surface of the water or adjoining shorelines. And finally, navigable waters. Navigable waters are those waters that are subject to the ebb and flow of the tide, and or those waters that are used or have been used to transport interstate or foreign commerce. Hold on one second here. The EPA does set thresholds to determine if an SPCC plan is required. Those thresholds are an aggregate of 1,320 gallons or more of above ground storage, 42,000 gallons or more of underground storage, and there are some exemptions. Those include containers that are less than 55 gallons, containers that are permanently closed, and containers utilized for motive power. So if you guys have a grounds maintenance tractor that has a 200-gallon fuel tank, and that fuel tank is primarily used to move that tractor forward, that container is exempt. However, if you have a 56-gallon container on a portable generator, that container is included in the SPCC regulations. There have been some changes recently to the SPCC rules. We have a few slides dedicated to those changes. In July of 2015, the EPA published revisions to the underground storage tank regulations. Those revisions strengthen the federal underground storage tank regulations and increase emphasis on properly operating and maintaining UST equipment. A lot of you guys were probably here for the Marshall Mott Smith training that we received for UST operators, A and B, a little while ago. And then those revisions are meant to help prevent and detect underground releases from USTs. Most of the changes that are applicable to the airport will take effect in mid-October of 2018. The 2015 SPCC changes include UST secondary containment and under dispenser containment provisions. So just as you guys understand, we just replaced the two 6,000 gallon tanks next door to us, but we couldn't just replace those tanks. We also had to do something about the under dispenser containment, so that if there's a leak in that dispenser system, the leak is contained by the dispenser itself. We also had operator training for Class B and C UST operators. LCPA actually did Class A and B UST operators. And then the UST operation and maintenance provisions, including walkthrough inspections, along with regular equipment testing for overfill and spill prevention devices and release detection devices, were also included in the 2015 updates. They also include requirements ensuring that UST systems are compatible with certain biofuel blends. If you guys were here for the Marshall Mott Smith training, you saw those awesome corrosion pictures where fuel blends like ethanol or biodiesel led to just absolutely horrible corrosion. That's what this is referring to. And this also removes past deferrals for generator tanks, field constructed tanks, and airport hydrant systems. And finally, there are updates to the codes and standards that regulate the construction and operation of UST tank systems. All right, that concludes the background laws and regulations, and now we'll jump further into our SPCC plan that you guys have developed for LCPA. Key components include a facility layout, discharge flow predictions, discharge prevention measures, discharge countermeasures, inspections and testing, and record keeping. Like the SWIP, the SPCC includes a detailed description of the facility, including surface drainage patterns and adjacent navigable waters. We also diagram the location and contents of each regulated container, along with a description of the contents of each regulated container. Luckily, drainage patterns haven't changed since 10 o'clock this morning, or 9 o'clock this morning. They still are generally from the northeast to the southwest. And there's a single outfall at outfall SW1 that drains to the Briarcliff Canal. Here's that aerial photograph we looked at a little bit earlier with the drainage basins and the outfall highlighted. From the airport property, the stormwater flows to the Briarcliff Canal, then to 10 Mile Canal, Mulock Creek, Estero Bay, and finally into the Gulf of Mexico. All right, let's talk about the applicable operations at the airport that are regulated. Some of the regulated containers are obvious, like the above ground storage tanks. RSW has capacity for over 1.8 million gallons of oil stored in above ground tanks. Some of the regulated containers fall below the applicable threshold, like the USTs for the concourse generators. RSW has capacity for about 12,000 gallons of oil stored underground. Now that is below the 42,000 gallon threshold that I talked about before, but it is an aggregate, so it has to be included. And finally, we need to discuss some of the less obvious tanks, including diesel-powered pumps, generators, air start machines, and other motors where the storage tank exceeds 55 gallons and is not used primarily for motive power. Some other non-traditional containers include mobile refuelers, drums of 55 gallons or more, and even transformers and elevator reservoirs. The airport conducts several activities that could reasonably be expected to discharge oil into the waters. Those include product storage and filling and draining, container and equipment maintenance, vehicle equipment or fueling, fueling system maintenance, and drum handling. One key component to the SPCC that is different from the SWIP is the development of discharge flow predictions for each regulated tank on the airport in case there is a spill. This analysis includes the total likely quantity of oil that could be discharged during an equipment failure, along with the rate of flow and the likely direction the oil would follow. This analysis includes the tanks, of course, but it also includes the pipes, hoses, fittings, and other attachments. All right, let's look at the individual letters of the SPCC plan acronym. First, we have spill prevention. This basically means that you keep the oil in its intended container. This includes personnel training, facility design and layout, protecting tanks and containers, equipment maintenance and installation, testing and maintenance of spill prevention devices. Second up is spill control. Now, a spill has occurred, and now you want to keep the spill from reaching navigable waters. This includes secondary containments like double-walled tanks, spill decks, etc. It includes oil water separators, booms and other spill containment devices, and spill response kits and absorbents. And finally, we have spill countermeasures, and these are the procedures for recovery, response, and cleaning up the spill. This includes the spill kits again, but it also includes good housekeeping practices, preventing spills from moving downstream, proper disposal of cleanup materials, reporting and record-keeping procedures. All right, so back into the spill prevention measures. These are the best way to keep the oil in its intended container. This includes maintaining equipment to prevent leaks and spills. It includes bollards to protect tanks from collisions. Double-walled tanks provide additional collision protection and corrosion protection. Liquid level gauges ensure that you don't overfill the tanks. And alarms and monitoring devices make sure that the tank is operating as it was designed. There's also personnel training, which luckily you guys are here with me today, and we'll get that one checked off before we leave. Spill control measures, a little bit more detailed here. They include the methods to contain the spill once it has occurred. This includes sized secondary containment structures of concrete, earth, double-walled tanks, and spill containment pallets. It also includes methods to absorb or divert spills from sensitive areas or storm drains, as well as spill kits, pads, kitty litter. Storm drain covers and booms are also included. And spill countermeasures. Moving to the countermeasures, we have stopped the spill, but now we need to clean it up and keep it from moving downstream due to a storm event. Again, we see the spill kits, but we also have structural controls like swales and diversion ponds and oil water separators that keep oil from entering the navigable waterways. Booms and other spill response materials need to be used properly and disposed of properly once they're used. Remember, store the used absorbents and other spill response material in a watertight container. Store them indoors or under cover until you can schedule a pickup with your waste hauler. And finally, there is the reporting that will need to take place. Make sure that you notify your supervisor. Operations and ARF will provide a spill report that will be kept and updated in the SPCC spill log. A large part of your regular tasks are going to be related to inspecting some of the passive controls that you guys have installed here at the airport. As you know, these inspections need to be on a regular basis and they need to be a formal part of your duties. Inspection of the facilities, along with leak prevention and detection equipment and sensors, will likely increase to meet the October 2018 deadlines of the new SPCC regulations. While you're inspecting the equipment, look for leaks or spills and report them. These spills need to be addressed quickly upon discovery, and develop and use good checklists so that you know you've been efficient and effective at inspecting the facility. As you guys know, the inspections need to be an ongoing, everyday part of your daily activities. So before you use any piece of equipment, visually assess the general condition of the equipment in the area, looking for drips or leaks. Prior to use, evaluate the hoses, switches, seals, gaskets, gauges, sight glasses, and other instrumentation to make sure that they're working properly. And immediately address those signs of leaks once they're seen. Monthly tank inspections need to be performed in accordance with STI standards, and use forms and checklists to make sure that your inspection is both efficient and effective. And typically annual tank inspections are performed by outside contractors like Guardian. All right, during the 2016 annual inspection, we found a few items that we probably need to be discussed. This spill occurred at the QTA tank farm in January. The tank had overfill sensors in place, but about 150 gallons of gasoline was spilled during an automated tank leveling cycle. Vacuum equipment and soil excavation was required to retrieve the gasoline, and luckily none of the oil reached the water. The ultimate spillage was less than the reportable threshold. One key takeaway on this incident was that the emergency pump shutoff switch was not immediately utilized. In your training, make sure that you locate the nearest emergency shutoff at each location where you work. This tank is at the electrical vault, and it has had single wall piping for years and years now. Corrosion and damage to the pipe could have resulted in the release of the entire tank's contents over a semi-pervious gravel foundation. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind here. This surface here is impervious, meaning that if something spills on it, it's going to stay there. But right here, this is all surrounded by gravel, meaning that if a spill hits that, it's basically into the ground. All of the single wall piping was replaced earlier this year and demonstrates LCPA's ongoing commitment to improving pollution control efforts. Here are two similar facilities that we saw during the inspection. These are both day tanks for an emergency diesel generator. Can anybody tell me the difference between the two? Spill kit? Candy bar. Ready? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry about that. Way off. Put him on the bench. Put him on the bench. Send out the lefty. All right, this is the GSE fueling facility, and you can notice the staining here near the drain. This is a little bit close, it's hard to tell, but in this shot you can definitely see the staining right onto that drain. This shows a couple of activities that need to be fixed. One is to prevent overfilling of the equipment that you guys are filling and the tanks themselves, and the other is to clean up those spills as they occur so that they don't reach the environment. All right, we talked about the 3 R's a little bit earlier, and we're going to jump back into those now. The 3 R's of spill response procedures include recognize the spill, respond to the spill, and report the spill. Some spills are easy to recognize. Large amounts of oil or fuel that are spewing out are seen as an imminent threat. Smaller spills are often go unnoticed or unreported. Checking equipment, fueling areas, and parking spaces for signs of spills should be part of your everyday operation. And once you recognize that there is a spill, try to determine what the material was. This can change the method of response. If the spill presents an immediate health or safety risk, evacuate the area and please contact Aircom Central. Of course, not all spills are created equal. Spills can vary in size, discharge rate, materials spilled. All of these can affect how the spill is responded to. So if you can do it safely, evaluate the spill for its volume. How much or how fast is it spilling? Is it still spilling? How much more could potentially spill? And can it reach an unpaved area or a storm drain? Responding to the spill, immediately contact Aircom Central when the spill caused damage or injuries, when the spill presents an immediately threat to you or other personnel, when the spill reached an unpaved area or storm drain or a drainage ditch, if you don't have the adequate spill response materials, or if the spill is a result of a tenant or vendor operation. All right, responding to the spill. Remember that you may need additional PPE to respond to the spill. Your first priority needs to be to stop the spill before you begin cleaning. Again, it's counterproductive to clean up your spill before you finish making it. Stopping the spill can range from fixing small hydraulic leaks and at vehicle maintenance, uprighting a drum, or hitting that emergency pump shutoff button. Once the source of the spill has been stopped, evaluate the spill to see what direction it's traveling. Keep those spills away from unpaved areas, ditches, gravel areas, and storm drains. If there are storm drains present or nearby, use drain covers or booms to protect those areas and divert the spill to another area. When you're sure the leak is stopped and can't reach any environmentally sensitive areas, use your spill response materials to absorb the spill. And remember to dispose of all those spills appropriately. The sooner you get those things cleaned up, the easier and cheaper the cleanup activities will be. Spill reporting typically flows from the staff member who finds the spill up to a supervisor, then to AirCom Central, Operations, ARF, and/or Alicia, and then on to the applicable agency. AirCom Central will at a minimum require the location of the spill, the substance that was spilled, the quantity, and the status of the spill. This information is used to create the spill log we've talked about earlier, and copies of all incidents are kept with to agencies. Conditions of a reportable oil spill include it causes a visible sheen on navigable waters. Again, this could be as little as 1 drop. If it's not to the water, but it is to a pervious surface, it's 25 gallons or more onto that environmental media. LCPA spill coordinator will make the agency notifications as necessary. That moves us into our SPCC training. Employees that are involved in oil handling, transfer, storage, and maintenance of oil equipment or spill response need to have training. That includes a one-time initial facility-specific training required for all oil handling personnel, along with annual discharge prevention briefings, which we're doing right now. During those briefings, we need to highlight and describe the known discharges, failures, malfunctioning components, and any recently developed precautionary measures. All of these records need to be maintained on site for at least 3 years. That includes the final SPCC plan, the inspection records, your testing records, employee training records, so please make sure you sign in before you leave, and documentation of any incidents. The entire SPCC needs to be evaluated and updated at least every 5 years. Additionally, the plan needs to be amended within 6 months when there is an addition of regulated bulk storage containers, such as the 2 new 6,000-gallon storage tanks next door to us, when there's new piping or pieces of oil-filled equipment, any modifications to the general or size secondary containment that you guys have on site, changes in location of oil storage or transfer operations, changes to your procedures, or any modifications to the facility's stormwater drainage system. So you guys are out there operating, you guys are doing the work, and if something comes up that needs to be changed, just make sure that Alicia knows so that she can incorporate those changes into the SPCC plan. That keeps us all current and up to date so that when we are inspected, everything goes smoothly. There is some reporting requirements for new equipment. So anytime anything is purchased or installed, everybody needs to let Alicia know, provide all the readily available information, and then make sure that you comply with the regulations as they pertain. All right, that concludes the presentation today, but remember, spill prevention, control, and countermeasures begins with you. Nothing. Outstanding. All right, no, that's actually wrong. It actually begins with an S, a P, and 2 C's. All right, so we're going to try one more here. Only you can prevent, control, and countermeasure spills. Look at that. Silence. Nothing. Outstanding. Outstanding. I'm going to be a comedian when I grow up, I promise. All right, so here it is. The good work that you guys do here at RSW eventually leads to all of this. We all thank you for keeping Southwest Florida's water clean and usable. Without people just like you doing your job every single day, no one would be able to enjoy all that Southwest Florida has to offer. So personally, I thank you. All right, what does SPCC stand for? The top one? Spill Pollution Control and Countermeasure? Close. Third one? I like that one. Spill Prevention, Control, and Countermeasures. All right, true or false? FDEP enforces the provisions of the SPCC plan. False. Who does? EPA. Outstanding. Very good. Containers with a capacity of less than blank gallons are exempt from the SPCC rule. How much? Try again? 55. 55. Exactly right. What happens if you have 25 gallons of product in a 55-gallon container? Is that regulated? Yeah. Yeah, it's the container that's regulated. If you had 25 gallons of product in a 25-gallon container, that's not regulated. Okay? Was this a discharge of oil in quantities that may be harmful into navigable waters of the U.S.? All right. I got some yeses, I've got some nos. Let's walk through it a little bit, side by side. Altogether, was it oil? No. Was it oil? Yes. Yeah, remember everything that's petroleum-based and animal-based, vegetable-based, mineral-based, all of that stuff is oil. So yes, this was oil. Was it in quantities that may be harmful? Yeah, probably. 150 gallons could definitely be harmful. And then was it a discharge into navigable waters? No. No, it was not. Although the oil did reach unpaved areas, some of the oil, about 20 gallons or so, it was quickly stopped and cleaned up. So in all, this 150-gallon spill of oil, the control measures contained all but about 21 gallons. The amount spilled fell below the reporting requirements, and spill controls and countermeasures prevented the oil from being discharged. Now, there was some discussion that had to be made between Alicia and the appropriate agencies. This was an incident, but it was not a discharge. So well done, guys. All right, how often must discharge prevention briefings be held? That's what we're doing here today. All right, how often must the SPCC plan be reevaluated?
5 years.
Every 5 years? I like that one. At least. And then what is the smallest amount of oil on a surface water that is considered a reportable quantity? A drop. A drop. They can produce a sheen. Very good. That's all I'm going to do today, I promise. Let's open up for discussion and comments again. You guys are the professionals here. You guys are keeping this facility looking great. So if you guys have any discussion or comments that have come up in the past few months, now's a good time to talk about it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.